had just gained powers akin to a creator, but the very next day, the hospital diagnosed me with terminal stomach cancer. In order to survive, I transformed the apple orchard back in my hometown into a sandbox world. I accelerated the evolutionary process of life, hoping only to create a civilization capable of curing cancer. I adjusted the time flow to 10,000 times normal speed. One day in the sandbox was 10,000 years in reality. I originally thought that as long as I sped up the evolution of life, I could find supernatural powers to cure cancer within this miniature universe. However, these ant-sized natives I molded with my own hands never played by the rules. I bestowed fire and swords upon the insect ape tribe, watching a young boy named Gilgamesh build a glorious, colossal city. Yet, as he grew old, out of the fear of death, he delusionally raised his sword against me, his creator, in a bid for immortality. And so, I put on a pair of blue plastic work shoe covers, stepped into the sandbox, and used the garden hose to bring down a world-cleansing great flood. On that day, the historian wept as he wrote on a beast-skin scroll, "God saw that the sins of mortals were grave, and brought down a great flood, destroying all living things." The soul feedback brought by the destruction of the civilization strengthened my body, but it also brought a fatally bad piece of news. The stronger my body got, the crazier the cancer cells inside me became. I was catalyzed straight from mid-stage stomach cancer to the terminal stage. Time was running out. Working behind closed doors all by myself was too slow. I had to drag all of humanity down with me to work as my free labor. So, utilizing black tech, I disguised a small sandbox in my yard as a hardcore holographic VR game called Spore Evolution and posted it online. In order to get the extremely scarce closed beta slots, internet-addicted teens, hardcore gamers, and even slackers across the net practically crashed university libraries and went bald pulling all-nighters, all just to submit a 10,000 word species evolution thesis to me. These ruthless players, known on Reddit as the fourth Scourge Degans, were born to be cyber sweatshop workers. They threw themselves into the game to be tortured one after another. One guy, aiming for ultimate spiritual power, evolved himself into a deformed, multi-tentacled eye monster. He ended up getting slaughtered and drained of his blood by native witches in the sandbox, accidentally kicking off the sandbox world's era of witches. Watching them fumble around with magic, I simply threw on a three-eyed Ravenel Takount persona and descended personally, teaching them Eastern Zen meditation and Western mindfulness yoga all at once. In their eyes, I became the supreme god of wisdom who bestowed the spark of truth. Later, a billionaire Silicon Valley tech CEO player named Lionel entered the game. In order to live the easy life in another world, he spent over 100 years laying low as a slime. Finally, using giant beast bones, he hand-rubbed a mech, used his slime body as a biological engine, and piloted a 100-meter-long alchemical airship. Using a physical magic attack calculated through precise mathematics, he forcibly obliterated an arrogant level 7 epic witch. He perfectly demonstrated to the primitive natives what a dimensional strike combining science and magic looked like, single-handedly pushing the sandbox into the roaring era of industrial magic. But I never expected things to blow up this much. As high-definition screenshots and rigorous physical data of the other world were exposed on Twitter X and Reddit, the entire globe went completely insane. Even the rogue superpowers on Earth couldn't sit still. They thought this was a real, high-dimensional alien world. The CIA, MI6, and even the Russian FSB actually sent their top scientists and ace agents to sneak into the game, attempting to establish space colonization right in my orchard. 173 players, in an attempt to break the spatial barriers and usurp my throne, actually committed mass suicide. They turned into bones, muscles, and skin, piecing together a 20,000-foot-tall, ineffable Cthulhu giant god in the sandbox. This thing crushed mountain ranges and launched a massive crusade against me, the creator. The native emperors and epic witches in the sandbox trembled in fear, kneeling before the temples and frantically praying for my protection. Looking at this group of players who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth, I sneered. I dug out a newly bought 2000 DJI Mavic drone from the barn, strapped on some glowing visual effects, flew it over the sky of the other world, and used a megaphone to deliver a solemn oracle. The evil god of the other world descends. I shall obliterate it with a single strike. Then, I brewed a cup of coffee and leisurely pressed the enter key in the game's backend, the ultimate disconnection jutsu. Pulling the plug, the 20,000-foot giant god, losing its player connections, instantly collapsed and disintegrated before it could even cast a skill, crashing down onto the earth in a storm of blood and gore. The native emperors who witnessed this entire scene were shocked into total prostration, forever recording this effortless divine might into their history books. And right at this moment, on this seemingly grand and magnificent continent of the other world, a drama more absurd than absurdity itself was unfolding. Those disconnected players, including the top spies from various countries who had infiltrated, found their organs blown all over the world. Some turned into a book read by a native girl, while others possessed giant beasts and frantically spammed Navy SEL CQC melee combat martial arts. They were staging a brutal battle royale right in my orchard, betting their nation's destinies in reality just to seize control of this giant god's body and rule this otherworldly realm. In just a dozen minutes, which translated to more than half a month in the sandbox, over 20 normal players who had turned into scattered organs died abruptly. Their deaths were bizarre, but without exception, they were all stomped to death by coincidentally passing giant beasts. Finally, a sharp-minded hardcore player noticed something was off. The big shot legend scholar hit the nail on the head in the Reddit game sub. The giant beasts stomping you to death have stiff movements. They aren't living creatures at all. They are absolutely husks possessed and controlled by muscle players. The whole internet exploded. Everyone finally realized realized that among the 13 muscle players they thought had teamed up to raid the other world, there were cold-blooded killers hidden. These infiltrated top-tier agents from various countries had a clear goal: assassinate all the normal players, monopolize the 20,000-foot body of the evil god, and thereby obtain biotech that was thousands of years ahead of the real world. However, I truly had to hand it to the thought processes of these ruthless netizens. At first, everyone in the Discord server was panicking, cursing the traitors, but it didn't take long for the vibe to drastically change. Someone posted, "How the FK is this not among us? Find the imposters, brothers." Immediately, someone else chimed in, dropping over 100 people onto a massive map, starting by falling from the sky like a parachute jump. Getting killed the moment you land is literally landing into a box. The survivors scavenge for evil genes to evolve. This is clearly a Fortnite meets PUBG battle royale. Okay, what was supposed to be a cruel, one-sided massacre was forcibly hyped into a chicken dinner battle royale by these broad-minded players, who even excitedly began forming squads to fight back. The top national spies lurking in the shadows were probably dumbfounded. Reading the forums. The mental state of these people was simply outrageous. They were at death's door and still managing to hype themselves up. I sat in the orchard munching on an apple, watching coldly as an emotionless creator. It was a good thing the players had a good mindset, but in the face of an absolute power gap, the normal little lambs who could survive could be counted on one hand. But this was exactly what I wanted. Using the hands of these intelligence agency spies to do a massive wipe, while stimulating them to compete and push the Sandbox civilization forward, made me a fisherman who was guaranteed to profit. Of course, there were also slackers among the players who didn't want to fight. For example, my fake girlfriend Chloe, who was grouped with another girl's scalp organ, didn't get involved in the killing at all. The two girls used the characteristic of hair being able to thread needles and embroider words on the scalp to directly turn themselves into a human printer, copying books in otherworldly taverns to make money. They even churned out The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers and Harry Potter, acting as troubadours while sightseeing, single-handedly raising the spiritual and cultural level of the other world. Unfortunately, they were arrogant for less than 3 months before being stomped back to reality by a magical beast controlled by a red-named spy in a bar, prematurely ending their 3-day tour of the other world. Meanwhile, on the native side, the real panic was just beginning. The scattered organs of the evil god parasitized major giant beasts, spawning terrifying half-demon, half-beast monsters. Even more despairing was that these monsters were not only bloodthirsty, but they were instinctively learning the supernatural systems of the witches. On the throne of the Kingdom of Babylon, the Death Emperor Medusa, listening to the battle reports of magical beasts rampaging through cities and looting alchemy shops, crushed her armrest in shock and decisively ordered, "Send word to the 3 great witch kingdoms. All witch academies and sects are to launch a full-scale purge of the magical beasts." The witch world once again plunged into a survival crisis reminiscent of the tribal era, historically known as the Cthulhu evil god catastrophe. 8 years passed in the Sandbox, while on my end, I had just ridden my dirt bike out to Walmart to buy a box of mac and cheese. By this time, those red-named spies had completely exposed their IDs, and all of them had advanced to level 3 or even level 4 witches. Backed by the optimal strategies provided by national-level research institutes, they managed to play a single muscle to perfection. CIA agent Bell, claiming to be at the top of the food chain, took the stitched abomination route. His 200-plus foodle body was spliced together from the rotting flesh of giant beasts. With a meat hook in one hand and a sickle in the other, he swallowed victims alive, euphemistically calling it 8 times the protein of beef. Russian FSB agent Ivan took the undead Zerg rush route, piling up flesh and blood into a massive tombstone as a brood mother. He hatched thousands of small ghoul armies, creating an undead scourge, and became known as the Black Goat of the Woods with 1,000 young. Former Navy SEL veteran Jack Ghost was the most insidious. He disguised himself as a gentle, scholarly young wizard, wearing a music box made of writhing blood vessels. He listened to music while planning assassination routes, silently erasing other players, and became known as the Nameless Mist. Naturally, the ruthless players on the side of good weren't idle either. The foul-mouthed toxic player Tiger Brothers turned over a new leaf. He memorized over 100 Instagram influencer motivational quotes, transformed into the positive energy book of Holy Light, and scammed a native holy maiden into establishing the Church of Light. Using quotes like "Don't bow your head, the crown will fall. If you can't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best," he moved the native believers to tears, aggressively harvesting faith and becoming the main force against the evil gods. He played the thief crying catch the thief card to absolute perfection. And beneath the church, Pope Legend Scholar used snatched severed limbs to piece together a 300-foot-tall, nerfed version of an evil god giant. The Ivy League STEM bro speeding Hurricane Max used a short staff as a transformation device, yelled its morphin time, and merged into the giant's chest to become the pilot of the Giant of Light. They were fully prepared to fight to the death against the invading spies to protect this world. Watching this bunch stir up a storm, I nodded in satisfaction. But what truly surprised me was the reclusive genius girl Pandora Penny, who held the Rubik's Cube cell. This girl developed in secret, running to a prison island to scam dozens of old monsters whose cultivation had been crippled after rebelling against the Alchemy Emperor years ago. To prevent their ultimate techniques from being lost, the old monsters joined forces to deduce the most perfect cultivation magic runes for her. 5 years later, she actually used idealistic spiritual power to interfere with reality, storing a grain of sand into her spiritual world, A spatial alchemical construct spatial ring was truly born in my sandbox. Cthulhu evil gods, stitched abominations, undead necropolises, the Church of Light, space magic. The entire supernatural system of the sandbox had been completely fleshed out and was bound to welcome its ultimate explosion. The world was mature. It was time to handle my real business. During this time, utilizing the spiritual feedback from the mass extinction of species, I had already broken through to a level 2 witch in reality. But my spiritual power still couldn't erase the cancer cells in my body. Walking the path of a witch was too slow. I wouldn't live long enough to reach level 4, where I could heal myself. Even more terrifying was that I had integrated the evil eye genes, which meant the rebelling cancer cells in my body also possessed supernatural traits. It was turning into an unimaginable monster. I had to throw this ticking time bomb into the sandbox and let the world's top native witches research it for me. I bought a large block of dry ice from the FedEx delivery guy and carefully carved it into the shape of a sword. Stealing myself, I cut my finger and dripped the blood containing the cancer cells onto this cold, smoking dry ice sword. Historical records stated that the ancient Babylonian king Gilgamesh once used a Gajavan alloy sword to cut the creator's finger, tainting it with the blood of immortality. What I needed to do now was build a fake tomb and put this sword inside. Once they excavated the ancient tomb, the dry ice would instantly sublimate and vanish, leaving only that pool of bright red, flowing blood of immortality in the coffin. Ermin who commands life, Medusa who commands death. Let me see if you, the wise ones of the entire witch civilization, can unlock the secrets of this blood of immortality to cure my terminal illness. I sneaked to the edge of the sandbox, found a hidden valley, dug a hole to bury it, and even forged the great flood murals of the ancient Sumerian civilization. After doing all this, I waited quietly. Time flew by in the sandbox. In the year 891 of the Babylon Kingdom, a massive bombshell completely detonated the world. Deep in the snowy mountains, an underground ruin and murals were discovered. These are the ruins of the ancient Sumerian civilization, the tomb of the oldest hero king who dared to swing a sword at god Gilgamesh. As soon as the news broke, the world shook. The hidden evil god spies' eyes turned red as they frantically rushed over. But before they could get close, the two monarch emperors Medusa and Ermine descended personally, bringing 13 legendary witches to directly lock down the mountain range. The level 5 spies could only grit their teeth and retreat into the shadows. Deep inside the tomb, Medusa opened the coffin with deep reverence. The dry ice had long dissipated, leaving only a pool of crystal clear, dark red-glowing blood floating in midair. Medusa pulled out a microscope from her spatial magic box. Taking just one look at the microscopic cells, her ancient body trembled violently like she had been electrocuted. No death. Within the microscopic structure of these cells, there is actually no process of aging or death. The surrounding legendary witches instantly fell into a dead silence, followed by an eruption of horrified screams. The blood of immortality. This is the blood of the creator. Back then, the Sumerian civilization faced a world-ending flood just to steal a few drops of blood. And now, the blood of God was placed right before their very eyes. Just 5 years later, the ace spies of various countries managed to obtain screenshots of the microscopic structure of the blood of immortality through corrupted witches and rush them back to Earth. As a result, Earth completely exploded. In a top American medical think tank, an old professor pointed at the blurry cell screenshot on the screen, his voice trembling. "Gentlemen, don't you think this so-called blood of the creator is almost exactly the same as our Earth's terminal illness, cancer cells?" In the Pentagon, Britain's MI6, and the secret laboratories of Harvard and Johns Hopkins, all the top medical scientists collectively climaxed. A terrifyingly logical chain formed wildly in their minds. Cancer cells are the blood of the creator. We Earthlings didn't evolve from monkeys at all. The genes of God flow within our bodies. The reason we get cancer is that mortal flesh cannot withstand the awakening of God's blood. The creator didn't just create that witch world. Our Earth is also his orchard. High-level officials from various countries slammed their desks with red eyes. Throw money at it till it bleeds. Go all out on cancer research. This is the treasure of God. Meanwhile, I was sitting in the orchard of my farm, munching on an apple, looking at this intercepted real-world intel, my head full of black lines. There were so many things to roast here, I didn't even know where to begin. Sure, you guys are awesome. Your mental gymnastics make perfect sense. I'm just a terminally ill farmer planting crops. Guess whatever you want. Anyway, modern medicine on Earth can't save me. So since you and the Sandbox natives both think this is the blood of God, then hurry up, put in the effort, and research the medical prescription to cure me. Just as I planned to enjoy some peace and quiet, the Reddit game sub and Discord channels were filled with complaints. That wave of normal players who were slaughtered like pigs by the red-name spies in the Sandbox were currently organizing a Tent-House Sand-Person petition, frantically cursing those spies for using invincibility and wall hacks, and strongly demanding that I, the trash dev, give them compensation. Fine, since you guys have so much free time, I'll give you a hardcore compensation. I sneered, carved out a 100-square-foot empty plot in the corner of the apple orchard, and threw in 17,000 Rubik's Cube cells carrying the evil eye genes. I directly posted an official announcement on Twitter and Reddit. The affiliated instance map Wizarding Simulator is opening for a 10-minute trial run test. The time flow is 1 day equals 100 years. The quota is 500 spots. Rely on your APM to snatch an account. As soon as the announcement went out, the server paralyzed instantly. Tens of thousands of single hardcore gamers who spent all year lurking on Twitch for drops clicked their mice so hard they started smoking, instantly emptying the slots. Bailey, a top student from Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, was one of these 500 lucky ones. And his luck was off the charts. He drew the hidden class with only one slot left, Spatial Sorcerer. That's right, it was the magic box cell I casually prepared to use as a spatial ring. Bailey excitedly customized his face, thinking he'd be able to fly, burrow underground, and handcast massive fireballs in this game. But when he opened his eyes, he found himself standing on a bare patch of yellow dirt with only a stone tablet in front of him. The system prompt rang out coldly. Players, please proceed to the cultivation tablet and meditate on your own. Bailey was dumbfounded, and the other 499 players were dumbfounded too. What happened to the magical battle royale? What happened to experiencing apocalyptic destruction? So your game compensation is just making us sit in the dirt and space out like idiots? Within 2 days Sandbox time, most Western players who were used to fast-paced shooter games couldn't handle this extremely boring mechanical repetition. Cursing the dev team as brain dead, they flooded Discord to vent and uninstalled at the speed of light. Players outside who hadn't grabbed a spot took the opportunity to squeeze in, only to find it was just meditating, and cursed as they logged off too. Batch after batch of people did sit-ups on the yellow dirt. But Bailey happened to be a ruthless guy, having pulled countless all-nighters to survive medical exams. He forcibly endured the extreme boredom and sat cross-legged on this yellow dirt, meditating for a full 8 months. In reality, only a few minutes had passed. Just as he was about to go crazy, a boom echoed within his body, and his spiritual power underwent a qualitative change instantly. I broke through to a level 1 which, ha 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 ha. Bailey's ecstatic laughter echoed across the plaza. With this, the newbies who had just squeezed in all dropped to their knees, begging the big boss to show off his supernatural powers. Bailey adjusted his robes, waved his hand with unfathomable profundity, and activated his badass hidden class, space magic. As a result, with a swish, a single grain of yellow sand from the ground flew into his space. Dead silence across the plaza. That's it? A hidden class just stores a single grain of sand? The newbies died laughing. Bailey was so angry he almost coughed up blood, only able to forcefully hypnotize himself. Hidden classes are all late-game bloomers. I must endure. Soon, the predecessors planted the trees, and the descendants enjoyed the shade. Those accounts that had been meditated on by countless players in rotation for months also broke through to level 1 witches one after another. The players finally learned the universal magic Warhammer of Air. Now the plaza was totally hyped. 500 witches were hurling giant iron hammers at each other, having the time of their lives. However, once the 10-minute trial period was up, the server instantly went black and forced them offline. Those players who had just learned magic and hadn't enjoyed it enough let out pigs' laughing shrieks in front of their computers. On the Reddit forums, the winds changed completely. What started as furious cursing turned into begging and pleading to reopen the servers. The funniest part was that Bailey, the absolute madman who meditated for 8 months inside, actually posted a hardcore analysis essay thousands of words long, forcibly vindicating me, the trash dev. He wrote passionately in the post, "Everyone misunderstood the devs. That boring meditation isn't torture at all. It's a free mindfulness retreat room opened in virtual reality to relieve the mental pressure of our high-stress modern lives. It builds the body and relieves anxiety. Not only that, this is just a semi-finished map. Later, we can build our own communities and PvP arenas. Imagine hundreds of players crowdfunding to level up one account and then doing 5v5 tower pushing, battling it out in the canyon just like League of Legends. To think you guys cursed such a conscientious dev team, you're practically blind." As soon as this post came out, the internet shook. Netizens were crying tears of guilt, frantically posting apologies to me, and even voluntarily acting as water armies to boost the anticipation score on IGN and Metacritic to a staggering 8.7. I woke up from my afternoon nap, held my coffee mug, and looked at the forums with a face full of Nick Young question marks. Did I time travel? Do Western netizens of this generation have some sort of masochistic tendency? Didn't I just casually throw down a plot of land and grab you guys as cyber sweatshop workers to help level up my magic boxes? How did you elevate this to a nationwide mindfulness health retreat? I bear a level of meticulous scheming that doesn't belong to my age every day. I am so tired. However, since you guys built the ladder all the way to heaven, it would be disrespectful of me not to climb it. Besides, this routine of hundreds of people taking turns to level up an account perfectly solved my problem of grinding the progress for these tens of thousands of Rubik's Cube cells. I immediately hit the keyboard and issued an announcement. Wizard Community Official Open Beta. Each person is limited to logging in for 30 seconds a day, 3 hours in the sandbox to prevent addiction and promote healthy gaming. At the same time, a Twitch-like VIP monthly subscription model is available for 50 months, allowing you to lock in your favorite character without bitterly relying on APM to snatch an account. As soon as the announcement was published, the reservation channel was instantly swamped. The balance in my offshore account, encrypted by the AI subbrain, began to skyrocket at a visible rate, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. To grab a Darth Vader or Thanos starting face preset, rich whales threw US dollars like waste paper. With this money, the expenses for the farm and equipment are completely solved. I looked at the balance and smiled with satisfaction. As for these leaks who were helping me count the money after I sold them, they could just peacefully idle away inside. Once this batch of Rubik's Cube cells leveled up to level level 4 witches and gain self-awareness, I D-swap in the next batch. Having handled real-world chores, I turned my gaze back to the grand sandbox. The storm there was finally about to completely erupt. Year 937 of the Kingdom of Babylon. The sky of the sandbox world was gradually swallowed by a suffocating gloom. The 1/50 years night of heavenly witches had descended. The long shift of sun and moon would bring months of endless polar night. The streets were deserted. All the commoners were so terrified by this murderous atmosphere that they locked their doors and stayed inside. And at this moment, across the 3 great kingdoms, an extremely terrifying rumor was spreading wildly. That old monster who had lived for nearly 800 years, the Death Emperor Medusa, relying on her fanatical research into the blood of immortality, had actually broken the 600-year lifespan limit of epic witches. She was living her second life. Not only that, she was about to take that unprecedented ultimate step, breaking through from mortal to demigod, igniting the divine fire, and transforming into a true post-heaven deity. Meanwhile, in a dark corner of the Flaming Forest Tavern, former Navy SAL veteran Jack Ghost, disguised as a gentle teenage wizard, took off his music box earphones. Across from him sat an old hag cloaked in black, radiating an aura of death. Beneath this hag's skin was the black goat of the woods, who controlled countless undead armies. Russian FSB agent Ivan. Ivan's withered finger slid across the table, his heavily accented voice so raspy it made one's hair stand on end. Medusa is about to break through. Once a true god is born in this world, all of us lurking, incomplete evil gods will be crushed like bugs, with no exceptions. Jack stared at him coldly. If you hadn't gone around slaughtering civilians to build graveyards, how would our reputation as evil gods have rotted to this extent? Outside the window, a fierce wind kicked up, and the polar night completely swallowed the last trace of light. An ultimate slaughter that would decide the fate of the world, between natives and players, was about to whip up a storm of blood in this darkness. The fierce winds of the polar night howled over the small town. Inside the tavern, the Russian agent Ivan, cloaked in black, finally showed his true colors. He sneered and told Jack that their group of national spies had already collected 90 of the evil god components and were preparing to join forces to take down the Suntabrainai through Medusa. But before that, they needed a blood oath hand that was to kick Jack, the American player, out of the game, eliminating their biggest competitor. The moment he finished speaking, Ivan violently opened a magic box, and countless crimson serpents of flesh spewed out. The entire tavern instantly turned into a slaughterhouse. Wooden planks shattered, corpses piled up, and a massive, blue dread tombstone rose from the ground, piercing straight into the clouds. At the same time, the tavern cellar exploded, and CIA Butcher Bell, wielding his meat hooks, walked out with a sinister grin. There are too many people in this game. You can exit first. Facing the siege of 2 red-named players, Jack didn't waste a single word. Stripping his disguise, his crimson muscles instantly expanded, transforming him into a 10-foot muscle freak. His opening move was the most vicious Navy SEAL CQC melee combat stance. The small town instantly turned into purgatory. 3 300-foot-tall flesh evil gods frantically slaughtered each other under the sky, tearing spider web-like cracks through the dark yellow firmament. Right at this apocalyptic moment, an extremely arrogant, sleazy laugh came from the edge of the horizon. Accompanied by a deafening boom, a 300-foot-tall giant of light made of muscle burst from the earth. The Ivy League hardcore gamer speeding Hurricane Max piloted the giant, crushing half a street with one step, and roared, "Monsters have appeared. How can we not have the Megazord?" He turned to Jack and yelled, "Bro, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. 2 on 2, let's beat the crap out of these 2 red-named sneaky bastards, and later well split the world between us." Jack was stunned, and the spectating civilians were dumbfounded too. Just as everyone thought this giant of light was a god punishing evil and promoting good, he fought while screaming at the top of his lungs to clarify, "My name isn't Azathoth. I am Patrick Star from SpongeBob." However, before this epic clash of gods could determine a winner, it was forcibly interrupted by a suffocating, terrifying pressure. In the sky, a massive black rose slowly bloomed. It was the Death Emperor Medusa. To seek the opportunity to break through to demigod on the edge of life and death, she didn't bring any guards and descended alone. The terrifying power of a level 7 epic which poured down without reservation. The black rose crashing down like a comet. Just one strike, the massive bodies of the 4 evil gods instantly disintegrated in the energy tide, turning into ash. The small town was smashed into a massive crater. Max and the others, hiding in the shadows, rolled out from the smashed backup spatial boxes, wiping cold sweat frantically. Holy SHT, thank God we used backup bodies and hid our main bodies in the magic boxes to remote control them, otherwise that would have been a total wipe. Nearby, Jack also walked out, looking like a polite scholar. It turned out none of these scheming bastards had fielded their main bodies. They were all using Smurfs to test the waters. But right at this moment, the rolling mountain ranges in the distance violently exploded. A Cthulhu evil god of world-blotting size, radiating ancient, terrifying energy, slowly stood up from beneath the earth. Those red-named spies had actually already reassembled this ultimate body in secret. The few evil gods from earlier were all just bait to lure Medusa out. It's over, this monster is mostly resurrected, Medusa is in danger. Jack decisively called for the ruthless players to run. In an epic level battle like this, they didn't even have the right to join the peanut gallery. In the center of the distant battlefield, Medusa suddenly finally opened her eyes. Staring directly at the ineffable, terrifying evil god, countless maddening, despairing noises instantly flooded her brain. But not only was she not afraid, she let out a hearty, unrestrained laugh. This is exactly the oppressive feeling of death. I see it, the gates of truth. For 3 full hours, the sounds of apocalyptic slaughter echoed to the heavens. Until finally, a burst of ecstatic laughter came to an abrupt end, and Medusa's aura completely vanished. The Death Emperor, who had suppressed the witch world for 700 years, had ultimately fallen. Sitting in my orchard, watching everything unfold in the sandbox, my brow furrowed. What exactly did Medusa, that crazy woman, see right before she died? It wasn't until another earth-shattering event occurred in the Babylonian royal palace that this cruel truth was revealed. Charlotte brought a black spatial magic sword before Ermin. Inside the magic sword, not only did the resurrected Lucy reside, but an ancient soul floated out, he first-generation witch, Circe. As it turned out, Medusa had long ago perfected the forbidden witchcraft of resurrection of the dead. By using the spatial magic box to provide a habitat for the soul, the dead could not only resurrect but continue to cultivate their spiritual power. Circe had used this to live a second life, even breaking through to level 7 epic. Ermin excitedly begged Circe to resurrect the alchemy emperor, but Circe smiled bitterly and shook her head, stating she lacked the ability. However, through witchcraft, she could communicate with the consciousness Medusa had scattered before her death. As the gray-black ripples spread out, everyone in the palace heard a spine-chilling final message. It was the voice of Medusa's pre-death ecstasy. "I've finally broken through," igniting the divine fire means. Immediately following, the ecstasy turned into a heart-wrenching wail of despair. "It's a lie. The world is a cage. The gods in heaven are lying to us. The divine bridge is broken. This barren earth simply cannot channel the energy to become a god. Oh gods, why won't you channel me to ascend?" Dead silence fell over the palace. Everyone's faith collapsed in that moment. Circe laughed miserably in despair, while Ermin slumped on her throne, trembling all over. The truth they had spent their entire lives pursuing ended up being a dead end. Seeing this, I sighed helplessly. It's not that I won't let you ascend. It's that the spiritual energy on this crappy farm in New York State is just too thin. The moment Medusa broke through to demigod, she tried to act like a water pump to suck dry the surrounding energy and ignite her divine fire, only to find she couldn't draw a single drop. This was a textbook age of Dharma decline. Let alone becoming a god. Even if she forced a breakthrough, her realm would be sucked dry by Earth's barren environment. Before she died, she cried and screamed, wanting to ascend to the realm of the gods. How could she know that this so-called realm of the gods was just a broken bird feeder in my yard? Aside from dried-up birdseed, there wasn't a single lick of spiritual energy in it. Although Medusa failed to become a god, her 800 years of research into the blood of immortality yielded solid results. She successfully used alchemical potions to neutralize the aggressiveness of the cancer cells, turning them into docile cells possessing an infinite lifespan. The side effect was compulsory hibernation for a period of time every day. What kind of side effect is this? Isn't this just needing to go to sleep on time at night? I was practically blooming with joy. I immediately pulled up the formula recorded by the AI subbrain, catalyzed the corresponding supernatural plants in the orchard, and after hundreds of failures, finally brewed a vial of transparent gene serum. Gulping it down, my body underwent tearing, agonizing reconstruction. When I washed off a layer of grime in the shower and looked at myself in the mirror, my eyes deep and spirit full, I knew I had succeeded. The grim reaper of cancer hanging over my head was completely smashed. I not only obtained the hidden immortality talent of Earth species, but also officially became a level 2 witch. And during the 20+ hours I spent curing my illness, the Sandbox world had met its most brutal fight for survival. The Cthulhu evil god, carrying world-ending might, besieged the Babylonian capital. Driven to a dead end, the world's final trump cards were completely forced out. Ermin, Charlotte, plus the first generation which Circe revived from antiquity, and Emily, the Orc King from the Alchemy Emperor's era. For peerless, epic-level geniuses spanning the river of history joined forces to battle the evil god. However, the gap in realms was like a chasm. The 4 of them had only recently broken through to epic, whereas the evil god, even incomplete, was a bona fide demigod. After just a few exchanges, the 4 epic witches were swept by terrifying tentacles and energy storms, crashing heavily to the ground in unison, severely injured and unable to rise again. The witch ministers watching from the sidelines closed their eyes in despair. The era of witches was about to end right here. In the sky, countless wailing ghost faces surfaced on the massive body of the evil god. Several red-named spies laughed maniacally inside, brewing their final strike, preparing to completely wipe out the native higher-ups on the ground. "All of you, go to hell." Boom! A blinding beam of destructive light violently erupted. But bizarrely, this beam didn't shoot toward the ground. Instead, it struck the evil god's own thigh at an extremely tricky angle. Accompanied by an earth-shattering scream, half of the evil god's body was blown to pieces. "What the FK? You scheming bastards. How did the ultimate move we cast together hit our own guy?" The furious cursing of CIA Butcher Bell echoed from within the body. "Where's Ivan? Why did Ivan go quiet? Oh my, maybe that hit just happened to strike Ivan's main body hidden in the armpit, and he was forcibly logged off." The British MI6 spy feigned ignorance while holding back laughter. "Bullshit. You guys just wanted to take the chance to clear out the competition and monopolize the evil god. Cut the act." At the most critical moment, these spies, each wanting to be the sole controller, actually shot arrows in the dark at each other the moment they used their ults. The evil god's massive body twisted into a pretzel on the ground, left hand punching right leg, head headbutting stomach, falling into a state of completely demented self-harm. The native witches below were completely dumbfounded. Was this ineffable, terrifying god actually a schizophrenic retard? While the evil god was in the midst of its frantic civil war, two figures darted out from the woods. It was Jack Ghost and the Ivy League hardcore player Max Speeding Hurricane. They had long set their sights on the four severely injured and unconscious epic witches on the ground. Bro, take advantage of their weakness to take their lives. Let's split up and save them, Max yelled with a face full of righteousness. Jack nodded in agreement. The two sprinted to the four native big shots and reached out their hands at the same time. But in that exact instant, their eyes turned cold, and with extreme tacit understanding, they both hit each other with a massive backhanded slap across the face. Bang! Jack was slapped flying, and Max transformed into the Giant of Light, standing up with a sinister grin. Surprise? Surprised? Unexpected? Did you really think I'd expose my back to a scheming bastard like you? Jack wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, gritting his teeth. You were playing dumb earlier. Turns out you were holding back too. The two 1000 IQ schemers, each harboring ulterior motives, exposed each other's trump cards. Seeing that the evil god in the distance noticed something was wrong, stopped infighting, and prepared to shift aggro to them, the two couldn't afford to keep fighting. Max scooped up Charlotte and Ermin, Jack hoisted Cersei and Emily, and they greased their sauls, instantly vanishing into the deep mountains and old forests. After escaping with their lives, Max and the others released the two native emperors. They thought they were about to play out a classic otherworldly hero saves the empress trope, but Charlotte's Pandora magic sword firmly blocked their path, bossing them around like NPCs. You evil gods, go fetch some water for the emperor to bathe, then go chop off a giant beast's tail for dinner, and remember to buy some high-grade salt in the city. Max immediately went to Reddit to vent. Help, nowadays even NPCs are giving players fetch quests, and we have to serve her master. Western netizens looked at the screenshots he posted, feeling both jealous and amused, jokingly commenting that he had triggered a hidden main story quest. But in the sandbox, the situation had completely collapsed. Although the remaining 3 red name spies were severely injured, they still crushed the world using the demigod-level broken body. In the year 940 of the Kingdom of Babylon, the 3 evil god kings announced the abolition of all kingdoms and established a unified witch federation. To prevent a native restoration, they issued extremely brutal ruling decrees. All evil hygiene creatures in the world were confiscated and destroyed. All hoarded witchcraft books were centralized in the capital, and civilians were forbidden from possessing any supernatural power. If discovered, kill without mercy. Towering flames blazed across the land. Countless old witches watched their burning notes of truth and wept in despair. This was the darkest era of the evil gods. These otherworldly players planned to completely castrate this world civilization, wait for this generation to die out, and then rewrite history to package themselves as the righteous gods who saved the world. Sitting in my rocking chair on the farm, I coldly watched this otherworldly version of burning books and purging magic. These spy players were indeed ruthless and had the iron fists of dictators, but they miscalculated one thing: fire of civilization in this world could never be extinguished by burning a few books. Those rescued epic witches, and that group of ruthless players who loved nothing more than chaos, would never let them sit peacefully on their divine thrones. As the creator, I didn't care at all about their dictatorial game. I only cared about maximizing my profits. During this time, I poured all my energy into the 100 square foot second sandbox at my doorstep. I released 500 trial slots on the forums under the guise of virtual reality, mindfulness cultivation, and opened the monthly VIP Paytoan open beta. These goofy netizens fought tooth and nail for a spot, lining up to come in and be my cyber sweatshop workers. They controlled my 17 Rubik's Cube cells, meditating, spacing out, and grinding progress day and night in the small sandbox. All I had to do was lie back comfortably and collect money, watching these cells gradually master space witchcraft under the explosive grinding of the players. Once this batch of Rubik's Cubes cultivated to level 4 and gained self-awareness, my spatial mechanical divine army would be completely formed. Developing on 2 fronts, I win both ways. Meanwhile, in the Grand Sandbox, the time had advanced to the year 961 of the Kingdom of Babylon. The 3 evil god kings had ruled the world for over 20 years, and the entire world was shrouded in black terror. Anyone caught hoarding witchcraft books or keeping evil eye creatures was killed without mercy. But where there is oppression, there is resistance. On this day, the 3 spies finally tracked down the resistance army's hideout Nephthys Desert. A bunch of natives lingering on their last breath still think they can turn the tables? CIA Butcher Bell, massive as a mountain, grinned maliciously. Together with the other 2 spies, they descended into the heart of the desert, controlling the broken but still demigod-level evil god body. But what greeted them wasn't a panicked army of defeated remnants, but neatly arrayed native troops. Ermin and Charlotte, who had been rescued by players years ago, led thousands of legendary-level witches, standing quietly below the altar. Did you think that for the past 20 years all we did was run? Ermin looked coldly at the world-blotting evil god above. As soon as she spoke, thousands of witches raised their staves simultaneously. The next second, densely packed points of light illuminated the sky. Those were tens of thousands of spatial magic boxes multiplied from the Pandora magic sword. Before the 3 spies could react, tens of thousands of magic boxes instantly interlocked in midair like a puzzle, forming a pitch-black cube radiating terrifying suction absolute space. Spatial spatial compression, a physical dimensional strike. Ermin shouted in fury. Holy crap, how do these natives all have spatial artifacts? Spy Bell let out a despairing scream. Their massive bodies, hundreds of feet tall, along with the surrounding sand dunes, were forcibly sucked into that room-sized magic box space by an irresistible, violently raging force. This was a literal, physical dimensional strike. What does it mean for tens of thousands of tons of flesh and blood to be forcibly stuffed into a small box? Ermin and the others didn't even need to attack again. With a muffled squelch, the three evil gods didn't even have time to leave any last words before they were instantly crushed into a mist of meat pulp inside the space. This group of arrogant red-named spies was suffocatingly squeezed until their servers crashed, forcing them offline. Outside, X, Twitter, and Reddit instantly blew up. LFG, let's f***ing go. Natives are OP. Empress Ermin is OP. They just got one shot like that? The three red-named scheming bastards are just out of the game. The mellow-needing netizens were so excited they nearly tore the roof off, all believing this was the finale of the evil god raid, that good had triumphed over evil, and the witch civilization had gained a new lease on life. However, Legend Scholar and Max Speeding Hurricane, the high-level players who had participated in the rescue back then, posted a long thread in the Reddit game sub. The very first sentence of this thread rendered the entire internet dead silent in an instant. Don't celebrate just yet. Those three red-named spies are indeed dead, but the Cthulhu evil god's body has fallen into the hands of a lunatic a million times more terrifying than them. The netizens were confused. Wasn't the evil god crushed to a pulp? Legend Scholar smiled bitterly in his post. The evil god is made up of countless organ players. The flesh is broken, but the system permissions are still there. Do you guys know who took over this invincible physical body? Who? The whole internet press. It's Medusa, the Death Emperor who everyone claimed died in battle. The entire internet was in an uproar. Everyone thought that Medusa, upon discovering the truth that she could not become a god while fighting the evil god, became disheartened and went to a heroic death. But Legend Scholar's next revelation completely overturned everyone's understanding, showing us what true thousand-layer cake scheming looked like. It turned out that Medusa did indeed see the truth before her death. Earth's barren spiritual environment was simply insufficient to support igniting her divine fire. But as a lunatic who could endure for 800 years in pursuit of truth, how could she easily accept her fate? If I cannot become a god in this world, then I shall become a wraith of the underworld. Medusa decisively chose to fake her death. She abandoned her physical body, her soul escaped into the void, and she observed coldly from the shadows. When the three spies ruled the world, she had actually long noticed the clues and set her sights on the player Legend Scholar, who was hiding among the civilians. Legend Scholar wrote tearfully in his post, "This woman is too ruthless. She locked me in a basement and used all sorts of dissection methods to forcibly extract the muscle permission that controls the evil god's body from me." Medusa, a native NPC, actually bypassed the system and forcibly stripped a player of their admin privileges. With the permissions, Medusa secretly reassembled the Cthulhu evil god's body. But she didn't just want an invincible physical body. She wanted to live forever. She didn't hesitate to fuse the blood of immortality she had researched for 800 years, which was my cancer cell Sinto, the evil god's body. Seeing this, an expert player raised a question. Wait, that's not right. The blood of immortality Medusa researched has a fatal flaw. After fusion, you're forced into deep sleep 95 of the time. Even if she controls the evil god, she'd be a vegetable at the mercy of others most of the time. How is that invincible? This was exactly why I felt this solution was useless at the time. When you're asleep, any low level which could just chop off your head. What's the point of immortality? But in the forum, Legend Scholar let out a mournful, miserable laugh, completely unveiling the most unsolvable truth of Medusa's plan. Did you guys forget the original setting of the Cthulhu evil god? The evil god is inherently blind and idiotic. It has no sanity. Even in a state of slumber, its unconscious, chaotic tentacles and mental pollution are enough to destroy any living creature that gets near it. The blood of immortality forces her to sleep 95 of the time, and the Cthulhu evil god's body happens to give her world-ending combat power while she sleeps. Boom! Reading this analysis, all the Western players sitting in front of their computer screens gasped, their scalps tingling to the extreme. A double negative makes a positive, perfect closed loop. Using extreme madness and unparalleled wisdom, Medusa forcibly pieced together two flawed systems and exploited a massive bug that even I, the creator, had not anticipated. She used the player's physical husks, fused them with the creator's cells, and completely broke the limits of the natives. Now, deep in the polar night of this sandbox world, quietly lay a true, ineffable entity. She was immortal, waiting in endless slumber for the long years of spiritual energy revival. Any living creature that dared to disturb her sweet dreams would be instantly torn apart by that blind, idiotic, terrifying power. Sitting in my rocking chair, looking at the massive shadow hidden in the darkness of the grand sandbox, I couldn't help but applaud. As expected of you, Medusa. These red-named spies thought they were the chess players, and the ruthless players thought they were the saviors, but in the end, they were all played like fiddles by Medusa, a native empress. Not only did she deceive the entire world, she almost upended the system itself. In the sandbox, beneath the dark, oppressive night sky, the moment the deity was born, the oppressive pressure materialized. materialized. Ermin's snow-white arm crossed spatial dimensions, pressing into the void, and the 20,000-foot-tall Cthulhu evil god collapsed like a weathered, ancient stone statue with a massive boom. We lost, but you ultimately can't kill us. The two red-named players hiding in the dark, seeing things go south, immediately cut their connections, attempting to flee. Do you think you still have a chance? A cold voice echoed like a reaper's judgment, instantly shattering their fantasies. From the ruins, Medusa slowly approached. She coldly activated her backup plan. In just half a month, she had completely taken over this level 2 which aggregate body that took the power of entire nations hundreds of years to cultivate to its bitter end. Endless flesh and blood reconverged, and Medusa's body rose from the earth like a mountain peak. Her legs gradually fused into a serpent's tail covered in hard scales. Her head of long hair turned into a sky full of wildly dancing venomous snakes, and a feeling of ineffable terror, 100 times more terrifying than the original Cthulhu, swept across heaven and earth. She succeeded. She completely stripped the players of their control and transformed into a true Gorgon. The gates of the underworld slowly materialized. Ermin's voice drifted across time and space, carrying a hint of sorrow. Medusa, why did you give up being human to become such an evil entity? Medusa looked up to the sky and laughed, her laughter filled with arrogance and madness. Ermin, I do not envy your ascension to godhood. Human ability has its limits. The Alchemy Emperor, the three witches, no matter how strong they are, they cannot resist the erosion of time. But I have chosen a path that transcends humanity. With this grand physical body from a high-energy alien dimension, paired with the blood of immortality, I will have an endless lifespan to explore the higher realms of level 9 and level 10. She abruptly turned her head. That gaze, carrying the absolute rule of petrification, merely swept over them once, and the fleeing cult remnants along the way instantly turned into cold stone statues. Even that book player named Tiger Brothers didn't escape. He was directly grabbed by her, reduced to dissection material on the chopping block. The fires of war died down, the breeze carrying a thick scent of blood. The witch capital was completely reduced to ruins, its level 4 and above elites entirely sacrificed. Even more fatally, the moment Victoria University collapsed, all the evil eyes penned inside were vibrated to death alive. A millennium of civilization destroyed in a single day. The evil eye genes were severed, the era of witches ushered in its final twilight. Medusa paid no mind to the wails of the ants. Clutching the Pandora magic box holding the underworld, she dragged her massive body back to the Gorgon alchemy island that had imprisoned her for centuries, sinking into the pitch-black deep sea. In the mythological history books of the future, a stroke like this would be left. Across the great ocean, the Gorgon guards the gates of the underworld. Those who look directly upon her shall turn to ash. For the living beings in the sandbox, this was a catastrophe. But for me, sitting in my yard, this was a massive bumper harvest. In this battle, 70% of the living beings in the witch world turned to ash. The spiritual energy overflowing into the sky surged into my body like a bursting dam. My realm, originally stuck at level 2, which was instantly breached. Level 3, level 4. In less than half an hour, I was forcibly pushed to the level 4 witch tier. I couldn't suppress my ecstasy. Riding my dirt bike, I ran to the dry riverbed outside the farm and casually shaped a warhammer of air. With a deafening boom, the entire riverbed trembled violently. Sand and mud blasted into the sky, directly blowing a massive crater into the ground. I swallowed hard and quickly slipped away. That was only half my power. I went all out in town. I'd probably be on the front page of Fox News tomorrow. Back in the yard, I chugged a Mountain Dew, flipped open the gold-embossed vintage English calligraphy book Genesis, and wrote down the latest record. End of the prosperous witch era. Cthulhu descends. The fourth mass extinction breaks out. Witches perish. The era in the sandbox turned the page, while the game forums in reality exploded. Western players were frantically denouncing the red-named players who destroyed the civilization. And the #1 shitster Max Speeding Hurricane was smugly posting on Reddit, explaining his wondrous experience of having his body played with and soul dissected by Medusa. He also extremely punchably noted that Medusa now sleeps for 100 years and only wakes up for 5, meaning the book bro Tiger Brothers she grabbed would have to rot in a sunless storage cabinet for at least a century before his next dissection. Looking at this bunch of livestock with too much energy, I sneered. Idle hands are the devil's workshop. It's time to squeeze out their surplus value. I immediately ordered the AI subbrain to officially launch the open beta of Wizard Community. This was a pure miniature sandbox, no monster killing, no leveling up, only meditation. I wanted to let these guys experience what boring mindfulness cultivation was, while conveniently having them AFK grind levels for me. Having arranged the coolies, I started planning a new world in the second large sandbox. The first sandbox evolved an inner space divine realm, so for the second sandbox, I had to do something different. A surface world is too monotonous, so I'll dig underground, build a magnificent, fantasy hollow earth. As for a light source, isn't that demigod Phoenix who got beaten into doubting its existence a ready-made sun? This time, no ordinary Zerg. I'm going to use the Rubik's Cube gene with innate spatial talents, fused with the blood of a strong monkey I bought for 500 at the pet store. Once this new human race starts cultivating, they'll have built-in spaces in their bodies. When When they die, I can directly harvest countless small spaces to piece together a massive space. This is literally a pollution-free, zero-emission human space manufacturing machine. Actions speak louder than words. I put on those blue Home Depot lab shoe covers and stepped into the 100-acre sandbox once again. AI subbrain, slow down their time flow 1-to-1. The moment my 20,000-foot-tall true creator body stepped into the sandbox, the rules of the entire world went berserk instantly. Medusa at the bottom of the sea and Ermin in the underworld simultaneously felt this terrifying, hair-raising supreme power. The white clouds in the sky turned into wildly stretching after images. The sun set and rose like a meteor. 100 years of time was being forcibly compressed into a single day. This was a divine method that transcended matter and causality, directly warping the dimension of time. Is this the creator? Medusa trembled violently at the bottom of the sea. Even an evil god whose mere gaze caused madness was as laughable as a piece of insignificant dust in front of an entity that manipulated time. But this crazy woman truly lived up to her reputation as a truth seeker. She dragged her massive serpent tail, bursting out of the sea with a boom, and strode toward me. When she arrived at the feet of my 10,000-meter avatar, her eyes burned with an almost demented thirst for knowledge. Great creator, could you fight me in a match? I want to see the absolute pinnacle of scenery in this world, even if the price is my life. I looked down at this Gorgon, beautiful to the extreme and crazy to the extreme, and smiled gently. We cannot fight, because in your terms, my current realm is only level 4. Medusa froze, surprise and disappointment flashing in her eyes. However, I raised my hand and pointed at the sky. Power is not absolute. As long as you control the rules, you can dominate everything. Boom! The time around us went berserk again. 100 years, 1,000 years, 10,000 times acceleration. I gently brought her massive head into my arms and pointed at a blooming rose in the distance. Washed by 10,000 times time acceleration, that rose instantly bloomed, withered, turned to spring mud, took root, and sprouted again. In just a few seconds, it reproduced for countless generations, even evolving the size of a massive tree, with multicolored petals and highly toxic spikes. Medusa completely went limp in my arms. The disappointment in her eyes vanished entirely, replaced by the extreme shock of hearing the truth in the morning and dying content in the evening. She finally understood how laughable brute force slaughter was. The supreme power to manipulate the laws of life was the true truth. While she was busy questioning her existence, I took the opportunity to pet her head of venomous snake hair, which had a very peculiar texture and had the AI subbrain snap a few more screenshots. I plucked that rose which had evolved into a giant tree, shrunk it to the size of a hairpin, and gently inserted it into her hair. The birth and death of life all begin from here. Consider this a gift to you. With that said, I paid no mind to the still-dazed Medusa, turned my head to look at the swamp in the distance, and tapped my finger lightly. That demigod phoenix hiding in the mud and trembling instantly experienced aging, death, and fiery rebirth, turning back into a fire-red phoenix egg. I pulled an empty Mountain Dew can from my pocket, stuffed the phoenix egg inside, turned around, and stepped out of the sandbox. The moment I left, Medusa, awed by the supreme power of time, finally snapped out of it. She carefully caressed the rose on her head, then turned and sent it into Ermin's small underworld space. Receiving this flower, Ermin borrowed the supreme power of the gods to establish the laws of the underworld with a grand stroke. Endless seawater poured in, turning into the agonizing river that cleanses souls, the Cocytus. The flower split into massive ancient wood boundary markers, guiding the souls to the blissful Elysium and the agonizing Tartarus. Within this 200 cubic meter space, the embryonic form of the underworld was finally and thoroughly stabilized. Meanwhile, I was walking into the kitchen holding that can with the phoenix egg. I boiled a large pot of water, tossed in a handful of premium Lipton black tea, and threw the phoenix egg right in, covering the pot to let it simmer on low heat. The water in the pot bubbled. The poor demigod phoenix inside the eggshell had no idea what was happening outside. It only felt an ultimate warmth enveloping it, thinking it was in the loving embrace of the creator, moved nearly to tears. The next morning, I happily portioned the Phoenix Spirit TID simmered all night into Dasani water bottles and stuffed them in the fridge. Millennium Demigod Bathwater and Absolute Super Tonic. After breakfast, I clicked open the wizard community to check on the progress of my wage slaves. But taking a closer look, I nearly spat out the tea in my mouth. It hadn't even been a day since launch, and these livestock had actually built miniature cities like Minecraft and SimCity. Plazas, arenas, they had it all. They even dug out a 2-story underground commercial street. The streets were lined with mud billboards advertising beauty mindfulness escorts, and among us space werewolf board game rooms. Even more outrageous, the guys in the Discord channel were discussing using fire magic to melt sand and print their own cryptocurrency called Sandcoin. I let you in here to AFK cultivate for me, and you came here to play SimCity. With a dark face, I directly issued a server-wide mandatory announcement using my Game GM identity. Currency system officially launched. All transactions must use the official meditation coins. For every hour of obedient meditation, the system issues 1 meditation coin. Private money printing is prohibited. Violators will be banned. As soon as the announcement went out, the whole internet wailed. These players finally recognized reality want to act cool and pick up girls in the game. Better work for the creator and meditate for 100 hours first. Having dealt with these restless players, I took the phoenix egg in the tin can and went to the Origin small sandbox that was about to birth new life. One-click acceleration. Amidst rising flames, a miniature phoenix broke out of its shell and soared high. Before it could figure out the situation, a group of bizarrely shaped black mud blobs, treants, and beetles suddenly popped out around it. This group of melon-eating players had logged on at some Gotham Point and were gleefully chopping down trees to make benches, lining up and getting ready to watch the creator main storyline CG cinematic. Looking at this chirping bunch of guys, the veins on my forehead throb. I casually shaped a wind magic spell. A gust of fierce wind blew this peanut gallery all over the place, and I followed up with a ruthless ultimate disconnection jutsu. What the hell? Who touched the creator's thigh? Why is the whole server black screening? Accompanied by screams, this group of annoying guys was collectively kicked offline by me in an instant. The world was finally peaceful. I looked down at the trembling phoenix, put on a face of sacred, inviolable majesty, and activated my ultimate bluffing mode. I have decided to entrust you with a sacred mission. I looked at it, my voice carrying unquestionable will. Go deep beneath the earth of this land, and use your flames to melt out a boundless hollow earth. The phoenix looked at me in disbelief, tears of emotion swirling in its eyes. You mean, you're giving a world to me? I smiled and nodded, but silently added a sentence in my heart. That's right, the unfinished underground construction project is yours now. Burn it hard. You are the free labor sun god of this new underground world. Seeing the phoenix so excited it was incoherent, I held back my laughter and continued the bluff. You are an innate deity, enduring hardships only for today. Go, become the sun of that world, nourish all things, and when you achieve great merit, that will be the moment of your ascension to godhood. How could this stupid bird, persecuted by the witch world for thousands of years, handle being fed a pie in the sky like this? It was immediately moved to bitter tears, kowtowing frantically on the ground, expressing that it would absolutely not fail the mission. I waved my hand in satisfaction, and the phoenix instantly underwent cell division, regressing back into a fire-red phoenix egg. I shoved the egg into the can, turned around, and forcibly kicked offline the group of players in Discord who had just logged on and were preparing to watch the cinematic CG. Are you kidding me? Are the secrets of the creator machine something you can watch? Walking to the cellar of my farm's barn, I grabbed a shovel and grunted as I dug down. I dug a tunnel dozens of feet deep, arriving exactly beneath the grand sandbox. I shoved the phoenix egg deep into the dirt, turned around, and left. Let the new world open from the chaos. As soon as the words fell, a resonant phoenix cry erupted from deep underground. The phoenix egg, wrapped in darkness, instantly broke its shell, and billowing flames tore through the darkness like a sharp sword. A 100-square-foot underground space was forcibly melted and pushed open in the extreme heat. The sky rose a foot a day. The earth thickened a foot a day. If this shocking, world-creating scene were recorded, it would absolutely be a mythological epic-tier famous scene. But as I sat at the tunnel entrance, wearing Home Depot welding goggles and watching this excavator chicken work, my brow furrowed. This stupid bird was too honest with its work. The design height for the underground space was 40 feet, and it actually burned all the dirt top, bottom, left, and right into high-density crystalline rock walls. After burning for an hour, which equaled 4 years in its world, the phoenix finally collapsed from exhaustion, flapping its wings and panting heavily. A contractor can't not feed his workers. I casually grabbed a handful of dry oats and dog food and tossed it down the tunnel entrance. The oats and dog food landed on the scalding rock wall, instantly cooking from the residual heat and emitting a bizarre, fragrant scent. The phoenix, starving, pounced and started pecking away furiously. After it was fed and watered, I pulled the garden hose, turned on the faucet, mixed in some marine salt, and just blasted water straight into the hole. White splashes cascaded down, quickly forming a vast ocean in the underground world. Next, I awakened the insect hive subbrain, dropped spores 10,000 times acceleration. When the phoenix looked at this great flood falling from the sky and the primitive life frantically incubating in the seawater at a visible speed, it was completely awed by the supreme power of the creator. It willingly embedded itself into the stone wall of the underground firmament, transforming into a blazing sun that never extinguished. It was even so bored that it pinched the metal impurities smelted from the dirt into colorful beads, dotting them across the ceiling to create a brilliant starry sky exclusive to the hollow earth. But being the sun god is extremely lonely. Under 10,000 times acceleration, 100 years for the phoenix meant the spores in the ocean had evolved for 10,000 years. The originally murky waters grew colorful plants, and primitive life reproduced and played in the water. The phoenix, acting as the sun, watched from the sky for a full 100 years, its maternal instincts overflowing to the extreme. It wanted to get close to these cute little lives too badly. So, this stupid bird folded its wings and slowly descended from the firmament, attempting to stroke the surface of the sea. Forgot one thingit was the sun. When a high-temperature blazing sun gets close to the sea, there is only one consequence. The seawater instantly boils. Boom! Massive amounts of steam shot into the sky. The entire ocean was directly boiled into a pot of boiling water. Countless newly born small lives died on the spot in the scalding boiling water, turning to ash. Because of a stupid bird's overflowing maternal instincts, the first mass extinction of the underground world casually descended just like that. I destroyed them. The phoenix looked at the ocean that had turned into a pool of dead water, cried down breaking, and frantically flapped its wings to flee back to the firmament. It finally understood that it could only bring light but could never touch life. Just as it was isolating itself, it suddenly noticed a lotus radiating a cyan glow on the dried, scalding mud bed. This green lotus had actually withstood the extreme heat of the boiling seawater and tenaciously survived. The phoenix treated it like a supreme treasure, carefully using its spiritual power to dig up the green lotus and plant it in its sun palace. Every day, it talked to a flower, treating it as its only spiritual sustenance. Looking at this shootin' sun god bursting with a maiden's heart, I shook my head helplessly. The underground world's ecosystem would take several days to recover, So I simply picked up the chilled phoenix bathwater from the fridge, took a sip, and shifted my view back to the grand sandbox of witches on the surface. By this time, a full 200 years had passed in the witch world. Because the level 4 and above elites had been entirely wiped out in the battle against Cthulhu, and the evil eye genes were completely severed, the witch civilization experienced a severe gap and regression. The alchemical airships that once filled the sky and the towering hanging gardens of Babylon had all become mythological stories from the mouths of troubadours. Now, the human kingdom's technology had regressed to the Middle Ages. Everyone only believed in the cold weapons in their hands, and no one believed that hundreds of years ago, humanity once possessed power comparable to the gods. And on the ruins of the Cthulhu capital, a beautiful tour guide was leading a group of aristocratic tourists, showing them an ancient monument. She was the first-generation holy maiden of light, Linda. Relying on the phoenix blood distributed back then to ignite her divine fire, she forcibly endured for 200 years, but she had also reached the end of her life. From a high and mighty holy maiden, she regressed into an ordinary tour guide with only level 2 strength. The tourists looked at the records of witches defeating the evil god on the monument and scoffed. If you're gonna make up a story, at least make it plausible, right? Humans building a city on the body of an evil god, and saying orcs were created by witches? That's too ridiculous. Exactly, the Pope of Light even said his wife was Emperor Ermin. The figures in mythology are all improper lunatics. Just as everyone was mocking, an inconspicuous young man in the tour group suddenly spoke. What the guide said is all true. Witches did indeed possess the power of gods. The tourists looked at him like he was an idiot. What proof do you have? The young man pointed at the statue of the Pope of Light nearby and said deadpan, because I am the book in the Pope's hand. The Pope was indeed a pervert, yelling Emperor wife every day, and we beat him to death ages ago. The whole crowd erupted in laughter. Everyone thought he was a mental patient trying to show off, but only Linda trembled all over, staring dead at that young man. After the tourists scattered, the young man walked up to Linda and smiled slightly. 200 years. I've returned. He was exactly the player who had transformed into the Book of Light Tiger Brothers. Medusa spent 200 years not only finishing the dissection of all his muscle groups, but also conveniently helping him possess the body of a human youth, considering it his clear reward. Looking at the blonde Linda before him, whose face remained youthful but whose lifespan was running out, Tiger Brothers knelt on one knee and kissed the back of her hand. The last witch in the world. Will you marry me? Tears streamed down Linda's face as she nodded heavily. 3 days later, the two held a wedding with no living guests in an old building in the windmill town. The audience seats were filled with the spirit tablets of the heroes who died in battle at the underworld alchemy array back then. Ermin, Charlotte, the necromancer witch, even the black and white memorial photos of Max speeding Hurricane and that group of players were placed there. Holding Linda's hand, Tiger Brothers raised a glass to a hall full of ghosts of the old era, yelling through tears, "Brothers, say it with me cheese." When these wedding screenshots featuring black and white memorial photos were posted on Reddit, players all over the internet sighed in lament. The final afterglow of the old era was finally coming to an end. Originally, Tiger Brothers just wanted to quietly spend the last 3 years of Linda's life with her, but before the honeymoon was even over, trouble came knocking. The people touring the ruins that day weren't ordinary tourists at all, but a group of illegitimate aristocratic sons with awkward statuses who deeply believed in the witch legends. Through clues, they discovered Tiger's identity and showed up at his door every day in heavy armor, kowtowing and begging him to take them as disciples. Tiger kept his doors closed, and this group rationalized it as the test of the gods. When Tiger went out to buy groceries, the auntie at the market would suddenly transform into a burly knight, grabbing him and frantically reciting the quotations of the Pope of Light. God said, "Don't bow your head, the crown will fall. If you can't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best." Tiger was driven nearly insane by these Chiyu-Nibiu aristocrats. He stayed up all night to post a cry for help on Discord. Big bosses, how do you stealthily eliminate a group of aristocratic youths in another world? Waiting online, it's urgent. The players in the group died laughing, but jokes aside, everyone realized a serious problem. The evil eye genes were gone. Even if these NPCs wanted to practice witchcraft, they couldn't. What could they be taught? Just then, several red-named spy players who had been lurking finally stepped forward. Since the evil eye system is severed, why not open the evil god system? The deductive genius Nameless Dragon directly dropped a theoretical scheme that shocked the entire internet: the potion sequence system. The Cthulhu evil god was pieced together from 173 different muscle groups. Although humans cannot directly devour a complete evil god, what if these 173 genes were split into 173 potions and taken one by one? As long as you collect 7 specific potions and drink them in sequence, you can piece together a miniature, complete evil god gene within your body. Nameless Dragon immediately provided the first formula, the fighter pathway. Select the 3rd, 7th, 76th, and other gene fragments that focus on muscles, bones, and skin membranes. Drink the sequence 1 potion Muscleologist to strengthen the physical body. Drink the sequence 2 Bone Burying Man to temper the periosteum. Grind potions all the way to sequence 7, and you will possess the ultimate physical violence to tear apart giant beasts single-handedly. Following closely, Stealth Assassin dropped the Necromancer pathway focusing on mind control and corpse resurrection. CIA ace agent Bell dropped the magic swordsman pathway combining melee combat with curses. As for the source of the potions, even simpler, have the believers draw an alchemical array, sacrifice some offerings, and commune with the underworld. To expand the underworld's territory, Ermin and Medusa absolutely wouldn't mind slicing some meat off the sleeping evil god and having the underworld's grim reapers act as Amazon delivery drivers to bring the goods right to the door. This whole operation gave the players across the net a collective high. Through brainstorming, these netizens had actually crowdfunded a brand new supernatural cultivation system akin to Bloodborne right on the ruins of the witch civilization. Receiving the guide, Tiger Brothers directly tossed the formulas to the aristocratic youths kneeling at his door. You want power? Go hunt mutated magical beasts, collect materials, and brew the potions yourselves. But I warn you, this power stems from the evil god. Those with weak wills will definitely turn into mindless monsters. The leading aristocratic youth, Albert, didn't hesitate to drink the Sequence 1 Muscleologist potion. After a bout of intense agony, he sent the strongest knight in the squad flying with a single punch. Feeling the explosive power within his body, Albert's eyes turned blue dread as he laughed maniacally. A brand new era belonging to potions and sequences officially kicked off. A few years later, Holy Maiden Linda passed away peacefully of old age. With nothing left tying him down, Tiger Brothers also closed his eyes and was buried alongside her beneath the lawn of the windmill town. The last two mythological figures of the old days passed away, but the potion seeds they sowed stirred up monstrous waves in this world. Albert didn't monopolize the power. He handed the fighter potion formula to his ambitious older brother, Wesley. After Emperor Wesley ascended to the throne, he directly made the fighter pathway public to all of humanity, setting off a nationwide frenzy of martial cultivation. Humanity finally possessed the power to face the Orc Empire head-on. But no one expected that the Orc Empire had actually stolen the potion formulas as well. Although orcs had their genes innately locked and couldn't implant a complete second gene, the potion system sliced the genes into a 7-part installment plan. Relying on this system, the orcs forcibly blasted open their gene slots. In year 218 of the new god calendar, the world's power dynamic underwent a drastic change. The Orc King Brum actually led a mere 1,000 elite cavalry, bypassed the border defenses, and plunged straight into the heartland of the human kingdoms. The human court was shaken. A 1,000-man surprise attack on the capital? Wasn't this just a suicide mission? Emperor Wesley acutely sensed something was wrong and immediately dispatched a 1,000-man heavy cavalry unit to probe and intercept them. When the human cavalry arrived at the inland town of Ian, everyone was stunned by the sight before them. The town was reduced to ruins, the air reeking of pungent blood. The corpses of over 300 orc elites lay on the ground, along with empty glass vials scattered everywhere. But bizarrely, in this entire town, there wasn't a single corpse of a human civilian. Where did the human corpses go? Why would so many orc elites die in a human civilian town? Fear spread among the cavalry. Suddenly, a young cavalryman originally from this town rushed madly toward the collapsed door of his home. Beneath the rubble lay the corpse of a tall, green-skinned female orc. The soldier roared, drew his sword, and frantically hacked at the orc corpse to vent his hatred. But when he hacked until he was exhausted and accidentally saw the facial contours of the female orc corpse clearly, the sword in his hand dropped to the ground with a clang. That twisted, agonizing, horrific green-skinned face actually looked exactly like his own biological mother. The soldier's hair stood on end, his legs gave out, and he collapsed into a pool of blood, a chill shooting straight up to his skull. Why does the face of this green-skinned monster look like my mom? A terrifying hypothesis instantly enveloped the entire human cavalry unit. The 1,000 men led by the Orc King didn't come to fight at all. They brought massive amounts of some unknown potion, slaughtering human towns and villages along the way. Those orc corpses on the ground weren't invaders at all, but innocent human civilians whose genes had collapsed and died horribly after being forcibly injected with the potion. The Orc Empire had mastered a taboo potion that turned living humans into orcs. Panic spread wildly through the human army. When the 1,000-man scouting cavalry pressed deeper and finally saw the main force of the Orc Kingdom clearly, everyone despaired. In just a few days, the original 1,000-man invasion force had snowballed into a massive army of 8,000. The tall and imposing Orc King Brom, riding a giant beast, looked down coldly at the surrounded human cavalry. Administer the potion to them. Amidst shrill screams and the crisp cracking of twisting bones, the original human soldiers, forcibly injected with vials of the mysterious potion, underwent genetic mutations, forcibly stretched into 7-foot green-skinned orcs. Join us, or die. Brom's voice held not a shred of emotion. Looking at those comrades who refused to yield and were ultimately beheaded on the spot, the human knight commander trembled and lowered his head, leading the remaining broken troops to merge into the orcs' torrent of steel. You are orcs now. Humans will only treat you as monsters and kill you. To survive, you know what you have to do. The orc dwarf strategist smiled sinisterly, handing the butcher's knives to these newly transformed humans. 7 days later, an orc monster army numbering in the tens of thousands arrived at the gates of the human capital. Inside the royal hall, Emperor Wesley listened to the frontline reports, his face the color of dead ashes. It's over. The human kingdom is completely over. He slumped powerlessly onto the throne. The orcs had mastered the taboo potion to convert living humans into their own kind. This was an unstoppable, snowballing plague war. His only consolation was that he had exiled his younger brother Albert to the magical Beast Mountain range on the border early on. Perhaps he could preserve the last spark of humanity's revival. However, 3 days later, the capital gates were breached. Amidst a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood, a blood-soaked figure leading over 1,000 elite knights violently hacked through the orcs' encirclement and rushed to Wesley. "Albert, are you crazy? Why did you come back here to die?" Wesley was so angry he coughed up blood on the spot. "A knight's honor absolutely forbids me from abandoning my king and retreating," Albert roared, protecting Wesley as they fought their way out, ultimately being tightly trapped by tens of thousands of orc troops on a lone mountain. Surrounded by enemies on all sides, they had fallen into absolute desperation. In the real world, I was sitting in my farm's yard munching on an apple, casually reading the battle report sent by the AI subbrain. I spat out a mouthful of apple pulp. "Are you f***ing kidding me?" I stared dumbfounded at the situation in the sandbox. Did Albert get kicked in the head by a donkey? Shouldn't the script for a normal person be taking the human remnants to retreat to an isolated island, building high walls to resist the orcs, resting and recuperating while waiting for the protagonist to descend? You f***ing brought humanity's last spark running back to commit suicide. Looking at the group of newly bred Rubik's Cube monkeys in the experimental field next to me, still screeching ooha-ooha at me, I rubbed my aching temples. Relying on others is unreliable. It seems the creator must personally descend to boost the account. I picked the strongest male Rubik's Cube monkey, took a deep breath, and activated the soul-snatching art pioneered by Medusa. This was an extremely overbearing technique of rebirth by taking a shell, allowing a strong person's soul to occupy a weak person's husk while retaining most of their spiritual power cultivation. When my spiritual power surged into the Rubik's Cube monkey's body, I was surprised to find that this thing's soul wasn't stored in its brain, but in the built-in small space inside its body. Holy SHT, this is practically a Natter Albern supernatural vessel. I unceremoniously took the massive spiritual power of my level for which realm and frantically compressed and poured it into that small space until it expanded into high-density liquid dense fog. Although this physical body couldn't meditate to replenish spiritual power, this fully charged mana bar was enough for me to act as a mobile artillery battery and spam dozens of warhammers of air. I made a makeshift parachute out of a red plastic Walmart shopping bag, controlled the Rubik's Cube monkey's body, rode a flying bird pet, and arrived in the sky above the grand sandbox. I took a leap. The fierce wind howled past my ears. Pop! The red plastic bag parachute opened in midair. At this moment, the human remnants besieged on the lone mountain, already prepared to fight to the death, all sluggishly raised their heads. In their despairing line of sight, in the azure sky, a semi-transparent red mushroom parachute was slowly descending. Hanging below the parachute was an anthropomorphic ape creature with a slender build, covered in dark brown hair. What monster is that? A super ancient ape man? Whether it's a god, demon, or monster, kill it if it comes close. Magic swordswoman surely gritted her teeth, drew her bow, and fired. A black arrow brimming with potion power, accompanied by a sonic boom, shot straight for my glabella. Looking at the incoming arrow, I originally wanted to cast a low-mana wind shield to block it, but thinking about how I came here to flex and settle the dispute, I might as well go all out from the start. Warhammer of air. Rumble. The previously clear sky instantly howled with fierce winds, clouds churning. A transparent giant hammer, condensed from highly compressed air, descended from the sky carrying world-destroying pressure. Bang! Not only did the giant hammer instantly crush that black arrow to dust, but it also smashed into the earth with unstoppable momentum. The ground trembled violently, countless trees were uprooted, human knights were sent flying by the terrifying shockwave, and a massive crater the size of a house was blasted directly into the ground. Dead silence all around. Everyone looked up in horror at me, hanging from a parachute and slowly landing, as if looking at a god. I untied the plastic bag, patted the monkey hair on my body, and walked up to the hyper-alert Albert. "Where is your king, Wesley?" A heavily injured Wesley walked out of the tent supported by an attendant, smiling bitterly as he welcomed me in. "May I ask why a warrior of the super ancient times has descended, and what instructions you have?" Wesley handed over a cup of ale, a spark of hope igniting in his eyes. "As long as you are willing to help us break out of this siege, I am willing to immediately abdicate and crown you as king." I took a sip of the ale and said flatly, "I don't want the throne. I'm just here to take you to see the Orc King Brahm." "Are you crazy? You want to go assassinate the Orc King? There's an army of tens of thousands out there." Wesley roared in a breakdown. "You have empty martial prowess, but you don't understand the way of ruling a country at all. You don't understand Machiavellian emperor's mind games. You don't understand balancing the grand scheme. What makes you think you can change anything?" He hysterically accused me, this uneducated brute. I set down the ale cup and looked with pity at this last emperor who styled himself as a grand strategist. "Wesley, do you really know what knowledge is? Do you think playing mind games and controlling the situation is the emperor's study?" I stood up, my voice echoing in the tent like a grand bell. Gilgamesh enforced a tyranny, and no one in the world dared to rebel. The alchemy emperor didn't hold court for 100 years, and the golden age remained peaceful. Why? Because in the face of true, absolute power, all schemes and tricks are jokes. The only standard for becoming a monarch emperor is mastering the singular truth capable of suppressing the current era. I walked out of the tent, forcefully yanked the dumbfounded Wesley onto the mount of an era giant beast, and coldly issued my command. "Today, I will show you what true emperor's study looks like." The era giant beast charged into the orcs' encirclement of tens of thousands. Facing the green-skinned monsters surging like a tsunami, I expressionlessly raised my hand. Warhammer of air. Boom! Warhammer of air. Boom! I strolled through the beast tide like I was taking a walk in the park, slamming down air hammers one after another. The earth was forcefully plowed into an abyss of flesh and blood dozens of feet wide. Countless orcs were smashed into meat paste amidst screams, severed limbs flying everywhere. I was like a ruthless bulldozer, forcibly carving a wide, open road straight to the capital right through the encirclement of tens of thousands of troops. Emperor Wesley, sitting behind me and watching this apocalyptic mythological scene, had his worldview completely shattered, so terrified he couldn't speak a single word. Half an hour later, the era giant beast stopped in front of the royal palace gates occupied by the orcs. Orc King Brum sat on the throne, looking at me, the monkey who had blasted open a path through an army with a single punch. Suppressing his inner fear, he tried to recruit me. Warrior, if you are willing to surrender, I will name you the first commander of the orcs, and we shall share the world. I sighed, too lazy to waste breath. Warhammer of Air. A single air hammer blew away half the Grand Hall. Two level 3 potion assassins hiding in the shadows attempting a sneak attack had just lunged into midair when I casually smashed them into bloody mist with 2 air hammers. I pressed forward step by step, walking right up to Brahm. Warhammer of Air. 30 transparent, formless air hammers condensed behind me simultaneously. The terrifying shockwave blew my black hair into a wild dance, the entire royal palace shaking under the godlike pressure. Feeling that destructive aura capable of instantly crushing him to dust, the previously arrogant Orc King Brum went weak in the knees. With a thud, he fell to his knees, his proud head pressed tightly against the cold floor tiles. I retracted the air hammers, looked around at the trembling higher-ups of both kingdoms, and announced calmly, "My name is Messiah. From this day forth, I am the monarch emperor suppressing the era. Both kingdoms shall revere me as the highest." After speaking, I turned and left, not even sparing them a single glance, leaving the emperors and full courts of both kingdoms completely lost in the wind. Just like that, I used the simplest and most brutal method to forcibly halt this war of genocide. As for founding a nation and becoming emperor, quit joking, I don't have time to play Game of Thrones with them. I had to take advantage of my main Bodis mana bar not being empty yet to hurry to the National Library, cram up on witch knowledge, and solidify my level 4 realm. For the next few decades, the VD Chimia library had a mysterious black-robed figure who clocked in every day to read books. And in the official history, the new god calendar left behind this mysterious record. Year 219, the orcs invaded with the might of their whole nation. The mysterious Emperor Messiah appeared out of nowhere, suppressing the 2 great kingdoms with his own strength alone, then drifted away, wandering the world, his whereabouts unknown. Meanwhile, in the Hollow Earth's new underground world, the Phoenix, whom I had coaxed and tricked into the underground, was diligently fulfilling its duty as the laborer sun god. It not only expanded the underground space into an upper and lower layer, but also used 9 stone pillars to prop up heaven and earth. It even took the metal impurities extracted and made them into stars, plastering them all over the ceiling. Watching the single-celled organisms frantically multiplying in the seawater, the Phoenix, lonely for a century, suddenly felt an overflow of maternal instinct and tried to touch the sea surface. As a result, a high-temperature sun got too close to the seawater, boiling the entire ocean into a pot of hot water, triggering the underground world's first mass extinction. The Phoenix cried heart-wrenchingly. To relieve its loneliness, this stupid bird began courting death frantically. It cut open its veins, plucked out its feathers, shattered its bones, and threw these bits and pieces full of demigod genes into the sea, trying to create gods to keep it company. After countless genetic collapses and mass extinctions, the underground world finally birthed the first batch of innate beings that survived the assimilation of the Phoenix bloodline. 9 golden firebirds transforming into 9 suns, a bone radiating a soft glow transforming into a cold moon, purplish red feathers transforming into winds and clouds that blotted out the sky. Looking at these 13 innate ancient gods born from the chaos, the Phoenix, satisfied, flew back to the firmament and started to AFK sleep, leaving the task of patrolling heaven and earth entirely to its cheap offspring. And in the real world above ground, I was looking at the group of newly log-eaten players on Discord and Reddit. The rich Beverly Hills heiress player Dragon Girl, to fulfill her ultimate perverted dream of letting the creator eat me, actually evolved her plant species into a bizarre plant called the Ivy League tree. This tree could grow infinitely. Its roots could absorb all corpses and soul energy, eventually bearing incredibly delicious energy fruits on its canopy. Watching the rich heiress control the vine dragon tree with 2 long legs, happily running up to me to offer the fruit, and even tweeting everyone look and see if the creator has cavities, I was completely speechless. However, this Ivy League tree that could grow infinitely and absorb energy was simply the perfect divine pillar to prop up the underground new world, much like Yggdrasil from Norse mythology. I immediately made the call, initiated the 4th closed beta, forced a system update, and temporarily kicked these guys offline. Then, I returned to the underground world and awakened the insect hive subbrain. Load the Rubik's Cube monkey gene sequence. Use the spores in the ocean and begin reproduction. Catalyzed by 10,000 times acceleration, the ocean boiled. One by one, dripping wet, anthropomorphic ape creatures covered in black hair slowly crawled onto the land. Above in the sky, the golden crow ancient gods patrolling heaven and earth let out a shocked cry. The sleeping Phoenix was awakened. It poked its head out, looking down at the murky ocean below, its eyes full of disbelief. This is the gods creating humans. Immediately following, with a massive BOM, a giant black stone tablet fell from the sky, crashing heavily into the newborn human tribe. The tablet was engraved with the meridian circulation method, exclusive to the Rubik's Cube monkeys for expanding the space in their bodies, which I had spent decades deducing, while inside the body of Emperor Messiah. Time flowed on. Protected by the ancient gods and guided by the stone tablet, the human race began their blood-drinking, raw-meat-eating tribal civilization. The Phoenix watched as these humans, weak as ants, improved their strength by leaps and bounds relying on the cultivation method on the tablet, and an indescribable fear rose in its heart. They are humanoid, and the creator is also humanoid. Could humanoid forms be the protagonists of heaven and earth? The psychological trauma of being frantically persecuted by humans in the witch world resurfaced, and the Phoenix's eyes gradually grew cold and resolute. Rather than waiting to be surpassed by them, it's better I surpass myself first. I want to become a god, the very first true god in this world. The Phoenix summoned the most powerful female leader of the human race. Amidst a blinding, sacred radiance, the Phoenix abandoned its massive physical body, transformed into a wisp of a primordial spirit, and forcibly rushed into the female leader's inner space. Body transforms into the primordial spirit, will becomes the vessel, a single Tao fruit entrusted to the void heaven. The originally black-red ape leader shed her hair under the baptism of the divine fire, transforming into an exquisitely graceful, flawlessly beautiful woman. She slowly draped herself in animal skins, felt the vast divine power within her body, and a proud, cold smirk curled the corners of her lips. From now on, there is no longer a Phoenix body in this world.